end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Everything they built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one! Oh shit! Oh my god! Okay! Hey! Oh my god! Fuck, stop.
We're still
It's going
having
on.
an earthquake.
Going on right now.
Holy freaking cow! Oh my gosh, it's still shaking. We're still shaking.
Let's check in with Ellen Baca. She's following some breaking news out of Alaska this morning where an earthquake hit about an hour and a half ago. Ellen's in the tracking center with that and your forecast. Ellen?
Yeah, Evan, Coco, we go from the East Coast and the storm system there to an earthquake on the West Coast. It's near Anchorage, Alaska. So if we take Storm Track Live Full, you can see where this actually is. We plotted it for you. So this actually plots all of the earthquakes. Every little red dot you see is an earthquake. And you can see that giant bullseye there. That's in Alaska, just southwest of Anchorage, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake, which is fairly large. Now, the good news from this thing is, so far, there aren't any expected injuries from this. There are expected power outages, but we're not expecting to see a tsunami. So again, that's southwest of Anchorage, just north.
6.4 magnitude earthquake struck northwest China's Qinghai province early on Thursday. But fortunately, only one person was slightly injured. The tremor jolted the county of Menyuan just after 1 a.m. Thursday. The epicenter was 10 kilometers deep underground. Over 50 houses were damaged. Phone services are operating normally. The earthquake sent many residents to flee their homes, and some spent the night in their cars, although temperatures dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. Local authorities have set up more than 700 tents to accommodate those affected and rushed in aid materials. Assessment of the damage is underway.
Imagine, if you will, you're standing on your front porch when, out of nowhere, a cataclysmic explosion goes off. You see a bright light, you feel the force, and then it goes away. And when emergency responders go to find what blew up, they can't find anything. Well, it's happened in Fayette County recently, and it's happening around the United States. For Michelle Wiltrot, what happened around 7:45 Monday night is something she'll never...
All I heard was a large explosion, and I thought something blew up or a bad car wreck.
Whatever it was, numerous residents around Connellsville heard it and felt it as well. For some, it was so intense it rattled entire foundations, knocking pictures off of walls.
I mean, I could feel it. So I don't know what it was.
Mysterious massive explosions are not exclusive to this part of Fayette County.
One of the biggest dangers from this storm is the threat of severe coastal flooding. One place that's on edge is New Jersey, which was hit hard by Superstorm Sandy. Governor Chris Christie did not issue mandatory evacuation orders, but some shore communities did advise residents to get out before the storm hits. Meg Baker of our New York station WCBS TV is in Manasquan, New Jersey.
The blizzard has hit the Jersey Shore and it has hit hard. The big story right now are these winds, and we've been warned about flooding. You can take a look behind me. This is the Manasquan Inlet. This water already coming up over the bulkhead. Now, this is the first high tide of the day, and this is powered by the full moon. So it's a dangerous combination of these very strong winds mixed with this lunar high tide that is going to cause major issues here down the shore. Behind me, you can see it's already starting to flood. Over to this side, there is the beachfront, where these houses basically sit on the beachfront, and there's only a 3-foot berm of sand that's protecting those homes from the impact of this storm. We're expecting waves up to 12 feet high that could really create more damage along the coastline. You can see the winds are really whipping down here, water flying off the jetty, snow on the jetty behind me. Now, Governor Christie has issued a state of emergency. That means no one should be on these roads. You can see very low visibility here. It's awfully slippery. It's freezing. And as we go through the day, this flooding is only sure to get worse.
Even those not in the direct path of the storm are being affected. The blizzard has canceled thousands of flights and is creating problems for rail travelers, too. Let's get more on that from David Begnaud in Philadelphia. David, good morning.
Anthony, good morning. We're talking about blowing snow here in Philadelphia. To give you an idea, driving to our live shot this morning, it looked like a snow tornado rolling right in front of the vehicle. In fact, so much so it was setting off the sensors on the front bumper because the vehicle thought there was an object in front of it. Air travel has been frozen, snarled, and Amtrak, which the station is right where we are. Look at the snow that's blowing. The Amtrak station, which is right near us, is still rolling. Amtrak says it will modify schedule, but it will not stop it. To the information now, air travel, here's what's expected. From yesterday through Sunday, what is expected is we're talking 8,200 flights that have been canceled and more than 3,300 delayed in and out of the U.S. For that same time period, American Airlines will be canceling over 2,000 flights, Southwest just over 1,000, and United will have just under 1,000. The airports where we're seeing the most widespread cancellations are from Charlotte all the way up here to Philadelphia. Charlotte Douglas International, BWI, which is in Maryland, Reagan National, Washington, the Dulles Airport, and Philadelphia International are all seeing mass cancellations this weekend. We're talking about airports that will be empty because there will be no flights in or out. But many airlines are allowing travelers to make changes to their reservations for free. So if you had a trip plan and you need to rebook, the airlines will let you do it, and there shouldn't be much of a hassle. As for the drivers on the road today, AAA says a dangerous winter storm and bad weather is always a factor for around 500,000 crashes and about 2,000 road deaths every winter. Look, here's the bottom line. If you don't have to be out in it today, please do not. Back here in Philadelphia, they believe they got about a foot of snow overnight, a foot of snow, and they think they'll get another foot over the next 12 hours. It's in the mid-20s here. They've clocked wind gusts upwards of 45 miles an hour. And you saw the blowing snow earlier. Anyone who thought this storm was overrated?
I really wanted to paddle yesterday, but it was a little too windy and weather was a little too rough. So I just wanted to get out here today. I did about like 7 years ago paddling down here, but I haven't had power for a full day now, so you got to kind of think out of the box to entertain yourself. It's definitely a little higher than Sandy. We didn't lose any docks, but we're right across from the yacht club, and they're a huge, about 30-yard dock uplifted. We got about 1.5 feet into our garage, but other than that, it's been all right.
Well, overall, what happened was Friday night we lost it at about 1:30 for maybe an hour, and then we lost it again just after 5. And at 5 on, I guess, Saturday morning, we've been without it since. You know, it becomes a part of your life here. You're kind of used to the flooding. I mean, sure, it's inconvenient. Did I want to get down to 50 in my house last night? No, but you're living at the shore.
Yeah, we're about 6 inches higher than Sandy on this time. You have to take your hands off to the city of North Wildwood. They did a great job preparing everybody. This is island life. You have to get prepared for it, and we'll just rebuild and be open again for the summer. We had about 2 feet, 2.5 feet of water. They came in from the bay. No power yet. We're in the day 2 of no power, no heat. But it could be worse. As long as nobody died, you can always buy more stuff. Life was the most important part of it. We'll just rebuild it. Do it again.
It's been almost 10 years since little Pluto was demoted from being a planet, but today scientists from the California Institute of Technology have announced that they finally have solid evidence for a Planet X, a true ninth planet on the edge of our solar system.
While the ninth planet has not officially or technically been spotted yet, it is believed to be far beyond the orbit of Pluto, roughly the size of Neptune, with a mass 10 times that of Earth.
Staff writer for the Scientific American, Michael Lemonick, has written an article in the upcoming issue and is here to tell us more about this incredible discovery. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
So how did this discovery come about?
It came about because there are things out there, little icy objects that are orbiting in a funny way, and nobody was quite sure why. It seemed like there might be something with gravity pulling on them, but nobody quite understood. And finally, these scientists that you talked about took a really hard look at it, did simulations, calculations, and they came up with the explanation. It probably is this giant planet.
I think I read somewhere it orbits the sun every 10,000 to 20,000 years.
Right.
Is that why no one has seen it to this point?
No, that's not why. It's because it's so dim. It's so far away that even though it's big, it's very, very dim, and it'd be very tough to spot with a telescope.
I'm also fascinated at the idea that this planet could be so far out there and still our sun be the mass that is keeping it in the gravitational pull of our solar system.
Right, yeah, but no, it's true.
That's incredible. And so there was a thought at one point from scientists that when they thought that there was something beyond Pluto, that it might have been all the massive objects floating in the Kuiper Belt, but it's not.
Right, so all those objects are out there and they have a lot of mass, and originally the scientists said, look, a planet is such a crazy idea, maybe it's the Kuiper Belt itself that's pulling it on itself and making these orbits look funny. And they ran simulations and they tried to make that work, and it didn't work. It just didn't work. There's not enough stuff out there.
What does this tell us about our solar system?
Well, one thing it tells us is that we don't really understand it as well as we thought we did. And another is that it probably had a very violent beginning. This thing was probably formed much closer in and then flung out, maybe in a close encounter with Jupiter or something.
Wow, that is really incredible. And when we talk about the mass of this Planet X, this ninth planet, being 10 times that of Earth, for those who are not scientists, what does that really mean, the mass of a planet versus Earth's mass?
Well, if you could put it on a scale, how much it would weigh.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it. And so it's bigger, it's bulkier, it's got more heft, it's got more gravity. It's this huge elephant in the living room, except we didn't know it was there.
You mentioned that scientists haven't seen it yet because of how far away it is and how
Right.
dim it is. Is there a way for them to get visual evidence?
Yes, so the biggest telescopes in the world can theoretically see this thing if they're looking in exactly the right place. And with the publication of this new paper today, they are now going to start to look in earnest.
This is such a fascinating, and again, a lot of scientists believe that by figuring out that there is this ninth planet out there, that will give us even more insight into the birth of our solar system.
Exactly, yeah, to understand what happened in the first 100 million years.
And the idea being that if we go with the hypothesis or the theory of the Big Bang Theory, that there was this massive explosion and these planets were flung out, and you have this ninth planet, and then you have all of our other planets in a row, essentially. How does that work?
Well, so the formation of the sun and all the planets happened long, long after the Big Bang. It's not really directly related. But the idea is that there was this big cloud of gas and dust just swirling around, and it shrank and condensed and got smaller and smaller, and the center burst into being as the sun, and the stuff around the edges condensed into being the planets. And then the question is, what happened next? Did they crash into each other? Did they fling each other around? And it looks like they probably did.
So that's sort of, I guess, what I'm hammering at. It could be that this explosion was so violent, and then we can't even imagine it, that you have a piece of that, some of those masses that are way, way out there beyond Pluto.
Right. That it's really part of those first few moments and the violence that happened then.
Right, and those closer to the sun happened millions of years, perhaps. I don't know the time frame, but after the planets that are further out.
Well, not really. No. It all happened at the same time. The thing is that there was little enough material in the inner solar system that Earth and those other planets kind of formed, and that was it. But further out, where there was a lot more gas and a lot more large objects, it got really kind of violent.
Just really quickly, I'm wondering if you can put into perspective for us how much further out there is this planet X than the rest of the planets in the solar system? I mean,
so Pluto we think of as the really out at the very edge, the very farthest thing that you could call a planet, even though we don't anymore. And
I'm still supporting Pluto's right to be a planet.
But this thing is 5 times further out than Pluto.
Fascinating. Is there any chance it's not a planet?
There's always. It's very foolish to say no chance because you just don't know what you don't know. But the odds are looking very, very good.
60 billion miles from the sun.
Yep.
Amazing stuff. Michael Lemonick, thank you so much. Fascinating stuff.
Great, thanks.
What exactly is this Zika virus, and why are we particularly concerned about pregnant women?
Well, Zika is a virus that's transmitted by mosquitoes. The Zika virus was discovered many years ago in 1947 and has been around Southeast Asia, Africa, and some of the Pacific Islands. It generally was thought of, and is still for people who are not pregnant, an inconsequential virus. It gives symptoms of arthralgias, rash, fever, conjunctivitis or reddening in eyes, and then it goes away as a relatively mild illness. The problem that we're dealing with right now is that in Brazil and in other countries in South America and the Caribbean, it's clear that there is now an association in pregnant women who get infected during the pregnancy, namely who get bitten by a mosquito who transmits the Zika virus, that there is an alarming incidence of what we call microcephaly in the fetus or the baby. And that is a developmental abnormality of small brain, and many of these children die, or if they're born, they have a real difficult time following birth with a lot of impairments. So that's the thing that's causing the alarm. There will be cases reported in the United States, and there already have
Hawaii,
been.
we know, yeah.
Yes, in Hawaii and in certain states of people returning who have been bitten and who have symptoms and are infected. So you shouldn't confuse that with it being spread within the United States. So you'll ask the possibility, can it ultimately, if someone comes back, start to have what we call primary spread within the United States? That's possible. We've seen that with dengue. Dengue is a similar type of a virus that is in South America and the Caribbean. And we've had over the years many little transmissions within the United States, in Florida, in the Florida Keys, and in Dade County, and in Texas. But that has been something that has been very well controlled. The idea of our having a major outbreak of Zika the way they're having in Brazil is extraordinarily unlikely. But we shouldn't be surprised if we continue to hear reports of people who are coming back from that area and coming to the United States. And you should not confuse that with an outbreak within the United States.
Shaoshan International Airport, and the visibility is only about 900 meters. And because of the snow during the past few hours, as you can see that the plane have just de-iced and ready to take off. And we have been told by the airport that today there are over 20 flights have been cancelled due to the heavy snow. And there are also some dozens of flights have been delayed. We know that during the past few hours the snow has been continued, but because of the temperature is not below zero, and those snow have been melted into ice and water. And airport staff have told us that there are about 600 people who have been ready to clear and remove the snow on the plane and to make sure that this plane can take off as soon as possible. And also they have prepared almost 1,000 rooms near this airport to guarantee those passengers who are going to take off the plane who may be stranded at the airport. So far, there are no passengers stranded at the airport, and the weather forecasters say in the next few days the snow will continue, and those passengers should ask or contact with the airline companies before they come to the airport. Indeed, the weather forecasters say in the next few days, especially after Sunday, the temperature is likely to be dropped by 14 degrees Celsius. So the Zhejiang province, those government departments have made enough preparations. For example, these education departments have asked most of the schools to suspend their school services, including most students don't need to go to school and they can just stay at home to prepare their final exams. And those firefighter departments and traffic departments have asked all the emergency workers to make preparation in case of any emergencies. And also Zhejiang province has set up almost 8,900 temperature shelters to receive those homeless people. So far, everything is the people and government departments have made preparation in case of any emergency, and we will keep a close eye on the temperature drop, especially after Saturday, and that the temperature is expected to reach 14 degrees minus below zero. So most people will keep a close eye in case of any emergency.
Packaging and storage. But a lot of discarded plastic ends up at sea, poisoning the planet's waters. Son Jung-in shares with us a new report that shows the pollutant will overtake the amount of fish in the ocean in just a few decades' time unless drastic measures are taken.
Oceanographers come across an adult sea turtle. They find something that has been clogging its nostril. When they manage to pull it out, they see it's a plastic straw.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of contamination in the ocean. Sea creatures that eat the garbage become sick. They lose their sense of direction and wash up on the seashore.
Some 150 million tons of plastic waste is estimated to be floating in our oceans, with an additional 8 million tons making into the water every year. The World Economic Forum has forecast that at the current pace, there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans by 2050. According to its report published on Tuesday, the main problem is that plastic is often disposed of after only being used for a short amount of time and is not properly recycled. In fact, only 5% is effectively reprocessed, while the remainder ends up in landfills and oceans. The report says that tackling the problem requires the joint efforts of consumer goods companies, plastic packaging producers, authorities that manage waste, and policymakers. Plastic is one of the world's most popular materials, and its use has increased 20-fold over the past 50 years, with the rate only expected to multiply in the coming decades. The WEF says solutions need to be found quickly to avoid an ecological disaster. Some options include offering people incentives to recycle plastic and encourage countries to improve their waste collection infrastructure. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
They gather to search for bodies, to sift through their belongings and what's left of their homes. Villagers here in the countryside of Deir ez-Zor say airstrikes on Saturday killed relatives and friends, just ordinary citizens. This man could only muster a prayer, calling on God to help his people. Rights groups say Russian jets are responsible for the strikes and that this isn't the first time. Dozens of civilians are reported to have died in days of bombing over Deir ez-Zor. Russia launched its military operation in Syria last September at the request of Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. Since then, Russian planes have flown an estimated 5,700 missions. Rights groups say more than 1,000 civilians have lost their lives in that time. Moscow continues to insist that its campaign is directed at ISIL and other armed groups. It's also rejected claims that aircraft have hit civilians, saying instead that it uses planes to drop humanitarian aid to those living in besieged areas.
I think that today there's not a single army in the world that would talk about its military operation so thoroughly, with facts and numbers, as the Russians have in Syria. I'd like to stress it's an operation against international terrorism in this region.
ISIL controls most of Deir ez-Zor province. It's kept the remaining pockets of government-held areas there under siege for the past year. This week, it's been on a push to capture those areas. The Russians say their intensified aerial bombardments are to counter that push by ISIL fighters. But the people here say it's all been at their expense. Gerald Tan,
A British
Al
judge
Jazeera.
this morning says Russia's president likely approved the killing of a former spy. A new report says Alexander Litvinenko died in London after drinking poisonous tea in 2006. Charlie D'Agata is in London with the new results of an investigation. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning. That Alexander Litvinenko was deliberately poisoned, assassinated, was never really in question, but this goes further. It says his killers must have taken orders from the top, and in President Putin's Russia, that can only be one man. On his deathbed, he told his wife, Putin did it. This morning, almost a decade after his murder, Judge Robert Owen confirmed Russia's Secret Service, the FSB, and Putin were likely to blame.
The FSB operation to kill Mr. Litvinenko was probably approved by Mr. Patrushev, then head of the FSB, and also by President Putin.
Good luck.
The former KGB agent fled to Britain in 2000, having become an outspoken critic of Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. It was at this hotel in 2006 where he met two Russian comrades for tea, who allegedly slipped poison into his teapot. Andrei Lugovoy on the right and Dmitry Kovtun have always denied involvement, and they're both back in Russia. Litvinenko became violently ill and was dead within 3 weeks. A urine test revealed polonium-210, a highly radioactive and extremely toxic poison. The British government has summoned the Russian ambassador and frozen the assets of the two suspects who they're still trying to extradite. The investigation also found it was the second time they tried to poison Litvinenko. Gail?
Charlie, thank you.